Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 48. We're going to talk about Santo versus the She-Wolves from 1976. I rented this from Scarecrow Video. I've not seen this before. Let's start with the prominent crew and cast. The film was directed by Ruben Galindo and Jaime Jimenez Pons. It was written by Jaime Jimenez Pons and Ramon Obon, with effects makeup by Irene Bustos and Antonio Ramirez. The cast includes Santo as Santo, billed as Santo el Enmascarado de Plata. Rodolfo de Anda plays Caesar Harker and Eric Harker. Gloria Mayo plays Adriana. Nubia Marti plays Eloisa. Carlos Suarez plays Gitano. Tamara Garina plays Old Luba. Carlos Jordan plays Dr. Jeremias Marcus. Federico Falcone plays Jaime Pons. And Erica Carrison plays Young Luba. Rodolfo de Anda appears to be the biggest acting name in this film, besides Santo, of course. Certainly, he had a lot of acting roles. He's got 168 acting credits at IMDb. Pretty impressive. As far as recommending this movie, honestly, I found this to be the worst of the three Luchador movies that I've watched for this project. I can't put that down to the lack of Blue Demon. It just feels cheap. The plot is not as clear, and the movie isn't as well shot as the last Santo film. This felt like a movie cranked out quickly and cheaply to continue capitalizing on Santo's fame. While I love the idea of the silver symbol, and you can bet we're going to talk about that after the synopsis, I really feel like this is one you can skip. Speaking to the fact that this felt cranked out, this film came out right at the end of Santomania. During a period of 4 years, from 1970 to 1973, Santo did 19 films. That's only 3 less than the 22 he did in the whole previous decade. That's more than one film every 3 months. He would only make 6 more films, not counting the cameo he did in the Son of Santo movie. So this is right at the end of the heyday of Santo movies. So now let's go over the synopsis. The film begins with a young blonde woman drawn to an abandoned warehouse by a raspy voice whispering, "Come, Queen." A scrawny old woman, identifying herself as Luba, queen of the werewolves, confronts her. It's time for the queen to be reborn into a new body. Then, lycanthropes will destroy the human race and rule the world. A bunch of werewolves carrying torches appear and observe the ritual. The blonde stabs old Luba and becomes the new queen. Her subjects carry her out in celebration. Smash cut from a werewolf howling over Luba's corpse to a screaming crowd watching an actual Santo wrestling match. It's a long match. After the match, new Luba visits his dressing room, claiming that she's a big fan and would like to get to know him better. Know what I mean? Santo dodges the obvious groupie and gets another visitor, Detective Jaime Pons. The Harker family hired him to contact Santo concerning werewolves. Santo is skeptical. Pons understands, but he was convinced by the desperation and sincerity in the letter. Santo accepts an envelope from Pons with instructions about how to meet Caesar Harker. We learn that Santo does take his mask off to shower, but we don't see his face in the movie. As Santo attempts to leave the darkened arena, he is pursued by several wolves, which are actually German shepherds. After a brief battle in the ring, Santo leaps up and hangs from the light rigging, shouting for help. When security guards arrive, the wolves are gone, and they think Santo is loco. Meanwhile, Pons, returning to his hotel, is hailed by the bloody Luba. She begs him to rescue her from her werewolf attackers. He takes her to his room where he offers her a drink. However, as they start to get better acquainted, wink, Luba turns into a werewolf and chases Pons. He gets his pistol out, but it does not affect her, and she kills him. In his apartment, Santo is surprised when a wolf jumps out of his closet, but it promptly and immediately disappears. He cannot get Pons on the phone for obvious reasons. He decides to follow up on the Harker connection. He meets Caesar Harker at a hotel outside the city the next day. Santo was bitten on the arm by the wolves in the wrestling ring and is now in danger of becoming a werewolf himself. Caesar aims to end the curse of the werewolves. As they speak, a swimmer cries for help from the pool. Caesar leaps in to save her, but she tries to drown him. Santo has to jump in and knock her out. They drag her out of the pool, but she disappears when their backs are turned. Harker tells Santo that his family has battled lycanthropes for generations. It is foretold that only a silver symbol can destroy them for good. You can bet that means Santo. Santo agrees to help, But first, he has to wrestle in another match. I estimate that a quarter of the movie has been actual wrestling so far. Anyway, Santo unmasks the other wrestler. While this goes on, a fur bikini wearing werewolf, Luba, murders Caesar at his hacienda. He injures her before he dies. His employees mount up and pursue the wounded werewolf woman. They retrieve her body when she finally drops dead. The werewolf pack mournfully howls. Gypsy Anna tells Julieta, a neighbor of the Harkers, that the queen of the werewolves is dead. Julieta orders her daughters, Adriana and Eloisa, locked up. Santo travels by train to the town near the Harker hacienda. The station master shows him a big crate recently delivered from Transylvania with no delivery address. Caesar's twin brother, Eric, played by the exact same actor, picks Santo up. That night, the werewolf pack kills the station master and steals the box. They open it at a ceremony, revealing it is Lycan, king of the werewolves. First order of business is choosing a new queen for him. All the female werewolves surround a pool, while the moon picks Eloisa psychically. The next day, the villagers chase Santo and Gitano, a servant of Dr. Marcus, brother of Julieta, away for asking too many questions. They pelt them with rocks before actually opening fire on Santo, who escapes through a cornfield. Among those present at Caesar's funeral are Santo, Eric, Marcus, Adriana, and Eloise. Tight black shorts and a short black miniskirt. Interesting fashion choices for a funeral. The sheriff shows up to tell Santo about the station master's death and the stolen box. Eloise tells Eric that she thinks she's a werewolf. She remembers the murder of the station master when the box was stolen. Meanwhile, Marcus informs the local police that the werewolf woman who killed Caesar had been dead for a month. I don't understand this plot point. Lycan visits Marcus in human form, claiming he is a scientist studying evolution. He invites everyone to a party at his house. Marcus declines, but Santo, Eric, Gitano, Adriana, and Eloise go. The party starts friendly. Gitano gets hammered. After a while, the lights go out, and some guests turn into werewolves and attack everyone else. Santo kicks furry ass. Several guests die. The good guys escape. Back at the Marcus residence, Santo finds Marcus half changed into a werewolf. Their family is cursed, but he is a good werewolf. Santo will also change into a werewolf if he doesn't destroy Lycan by tomorrow night, the night of the Great Red Moon. The group prepare for an assault by the werewolves, handing out rifles with silver bullets to the workers. They try to send the children away in a station wagon driven by Adriana, who has fallen in love with Santo, with Gitano riding shotgun. The werewolves, however, ambush the car with big rocks and flaming bundles of brush, forcing them back to the hacienda. That night, the werewolves attack, and it's a real shootout at the hacienda. Julieta turns into a werewolf and threatens Adriana and Eloisa. Santo intervenes and kills her with a body slam. Santo, she was the queen of the werewolves. He then takes off after the king, Lycan, who runs a long way until Santo finally catches him and throws him off a cliff, just as the sun rises, finally lifting the curse. There are no transformations. While the lycanthropes do appear in both human and werewolf forms, we never see anyone shift from one form into the other. On top of that, the makeup jobs are not my favorite. Everyone looks like a bearded Neanderthal. Noses are human, not even black, just patchy beards high on the cheeks of the women, longer versions on the men, shaggy, unkept hair for everyone. Fur bikinis and vests all around. These are easily the worst makeup jobs in the Santo lycanthropy trilogy. I wasn't impressed. This is a confusing blend of werewolf and vampire lore. From the werewolf side, we take the weakness to silver, as evidenced by Santo himself and silver bullets. Werewolves can also infect others with a simple bite. Oh, and they're furry. But other than that, they share the remote mind control typically associated with vampires. Also, their king is shipped in a large crate, coffin-like crate, from Transylvania, a la Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was an interesting tidbit. The main thing I want to discuss about this movie is to use this opportunity to talk about using German Shepherds as a proxy for wolves. This certainly isn't the first movie that uses dogs as a film double for wolves, and this is a good opportunity to discuss the topic. Despite owning a few dogs, I am no expert in animal training or handling, so I had to do a bit of research. Anybody out there that does know more than me, feel free to correct me. Using dogs to represent wolves on film dates back to the earliest days of cinema and in a variety of genres, including adventure films, horror films, and westerns. It's a practical and cost-effective approach for filmmakers. One notable early instance of using dogs to represent wolves is in the 1925 silent film The Gold Rush, directed by and starring Charlie Chaplin. The film features a famous scene where a dog, with added fur and makeup to increase the resemblance to a wolf, interacts with Chaplin's character in a comedic sequence. Wolves' unpredictable nature makes them challenging to train and handle on a film set. They're just unsafe. Domesticated dogs are cheaper and less risky to breed, maintain, and train. Dog training is well documented, and dogs can be reliably trained for specific actions, such as running, howling, or interacting with actors, making them suitable substitutes for wolves. Skilled trainers and handlers worked with dog breeds closely resembling wolves in appearance, such as Alaskan Malamutes, Siberian Huskies, and German Shepherds. Apparently, Malamutes were the breed with the closest genetic similarities to actual wolves, having a wolf-like appearance with their thick double coat, erect ears, and bushy tails. They were originally bred for hauling heavy freight as sled dogs through the Arctic. But since Malamutes and Huskies are most commonly found in northern environments, the use of German Shepherds makes sense in warmer climates like, say, Hollywood or Mexico. One interesting thing I did learn while researching this section is that dog breeders have worked to create new dog breeds that more closely resemble wolves and might make even better stand-ins for wolves in movies. It's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on going forward, but it's already starting to happen. The two breeds are the Czechoslovakian Wolfhound and the Tamaskan or Northern Inuit dog. The Czechoslovakian Wolfhound is a hybrid of German Shepherds and Carpathian Wolves, created in the 1950s. As a result, Czechoslovakian Wolfhounds often exhibit physical traits resembling both wolves and German Shepherds. They're known for their intelligence and agility. The Tamaskan is a relatively new dog breed, combining several northern dog breeds like the Siberian Husky, Alaskan Malamute, and the German Shepherd, which resemble a wolf with its thick coat, erect ears, and bushy tail. Perhaps most interesting to this specific discussion, this breed has already seen use as a wolf stand-in, portraying the dire wolves for the TV series Game of Thrones, a wolf in the TV series Outlander, and the Broadway production of The Crucible, and as the live mascot for the NC State Wolfpack. So I expect that we'll see more and more of this breed and less German Shepherds as time goes forward in Hollywood. So now let's talk about Silver. This film seems built entirely on the realization that Santo is El Enmascarado de Plata, aka the man in the silver mask, and that werewolves are vulnerable to silver. Honestly, that seems like the whole shtick. Santo can take out werewolves all by himself. So let's take this opportunity to talk about werewolves and their weakness to silver, where it comes from, and what it might mean. Truth be told, this is a fairly recent addition to werewolf lore and mythology. Ancient stories of werewolves and those who could change into animal forms usually didn't mention a special metal that they were vulnerable to. Of course, other supernatural creatures like the Fae might indeed be vulnerable to iron or other metals, so the idea isn't crazy. So where did the idea of silver come from? It appears to be an invention of Hollywood and the earliest werewolf movies, with the very first mention I can find being the iconic The Wolfman from 1941. And it does make a lot of sense. If you give a creature or monster a weakness, you can also make it tougher and harder to kill. This drives up tension and terror early in the movie, when the monster is viewed as unstoppable, until the hero learns the secret and manages to defeat it. Which brings us to the question, why silver, and why not steel or iron? As near as I can tell, silver has several attributes or traits making it perfect as a weakness for werewolves. First, silver, as a metal, was historically associated with the moon, and as the moon came to be associated with werewolves, it made sense that silver would be associated with werewolves as well. Second, even in ancient history, humans were aware that silver had disease-fighting properties, even if they didn't know what microbes, bacteria, or viruses were. Since the werewolf's bite spreads the disease, in a lot of lore, it makes sense that a metal with properties that helped resist disease would also resist werewolves. Silver also has historical associations with purity and hunting, being associated with the goddess Artemis. That's a pretty on-point combination related to lycanthropes. As a valuable metal, silver was associated with religious symbols and tools, making it easy to adapt older mythological stories that used religious symbols and iconography to fight werewolves. As we saw in the very first story we read for the werewolf from 1913. Finally, silver is rare enough to be uncommon without being so rare that it can't reasonably be found. Having said all that, I don't think that the early creators who developed the association between silver and werewolves consciously thought through all of these things. Rather, I believe their subconscious made these associations for them. Silver just felt right, and it still does. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Werewolf Woman from 1976. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back next episode.